Good morning, everybody. Dr. Ceci Zúñiga here. I hope everybody is well today. Welcome. I am going to talk about certainty today because I know a lot of people watching this video have either newly come to the end of a relationship, or some perhaps have been past their relationship and single for a while now. Others may be wobbling in their current relationships and not sure where it's going. So I want to talk about certainty because that seems to be a topic and a question that comes up often with among my friends, among myself, and especially with my clients, and also in the Facebook group. So that's what I want to speak to today. And by certainty, well, let me back up and say this. In my meditation this morning, and I highly recommend everybody make space at the beginning of their day to meditate because it changes everything. And I talk about that a lot in my practice and a lot in my class that I offer around this kind of thing. And you'll hear me talk about it again in these videos because there's just a lot to it. And I could spend hours talking about how meditation serves you, because I've been a Kundalini yoga practitioner for almost 18 years now and a regular meditator and practicer of that particular tradition, and I haven't found anything more powerful. So I could spend eons talking about that, which I'm not going to do now. But the reason I often do these lives in the morning is because during my meditations is when the clarity comes. That's part of the gift that they provide. And the clarity that came today for me was about certainty. And by that, I mean certainty in terms of knowing that you will be okay, whether you're in a relationship or not. The thing is, every relationship, I don't care how new, I don't care how old, goes through periods of wobbly times where things just aren't flowing smoothly between the two people. There may be tension, there may be even arguing. Sometimes that arguing gets explosive, and that's a different story. What I'm talking about here is just the day-to-day tension, struggle, challenge that can be a part of a relationship. And honestly, it is the part of every relationship. It doesn't matter how wonderful that relationship is. The reason that happens is because, like I said in my last video, things are changing all the time, and that includes you and the person you're in relationship with. We are not static beings any more than anything else is static in this universe and in this reality. We grow, we change, we learn, we change our minds. We get exposed to new things that wake us up. So we're not going to stay the same people over the course of the relationship, which is part of the challenge of staying in a long-term relationship. So, for example, the relationship I'm in now, we are into 10 years, pushing into 11 years, and yeah, we've certainly had our wobbles. The difference between where I am today with that and where I was, 10, 12 years ago in other relationships is that I'm 100% certain that should this relationship reach a point where it's no longer serving me or serving my partner, that we could leave the relationship and I would be okay. I can't speak for my partner, but I can only speak for me. And that certainty is huge, because what I see among a lot of my clients, many of my clients, is when they come to see me and there's wobbling in their relationships, they get really desperately afraid that they're not going to be okay. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's going to happen. They are so used to being in this partnership. They can't find themselves. They've lost their identity. All of that can be part of the healing process after the ending of a relationship. But when inside of yourself, you know who you are, or you can at least reclaim that during the midst of the breakup, then you will be perfectly fine, because you will have the certainty that no matter what, you will be okay. Again, it goes back to the video that I shared the other day about knowing who you are and about holding yourself in a place of value. When we have that sense of personal value inside and that sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves, then the fear softens and even dissipates, because then we are certain that we will be okay no matter what. And the biggest trigger for any fear that we have is fear that we're not going to be okay, fear that we're going to die. When you take it all the way back to our primal mechanisms in our brain, that's where it goes. Because fear is born from the ego, and it's born from that place in us that is designed, it thinks, to keep us safe and to keep us alive. So when something that's been a consistent factor in our life for 1, 5, 10 years, doesn't really matter how long, if it's been a stabilizing factor for our lives and it comes to an end, and we have come to rely on that for our own personal stability, we feel big wobbles around that, because suddenly we feel like we're going to be alone, we're going to be by ourselves, we fear we're going to be lonely, we'll never find this kind of partnership or this kind of love again, and we wonder what happened, and yada, yada, yada. Sounds familiar, right? And especially if the breakup got ugly. One question that comes in over and over and over again that I talk with clients about is, how did we get from being so in love when we started this partnership to just hating each other? That's a trick. That's a trick. And that's one of those topics that goes deep. I do talk about it in my course. It's too much to go into here. But that's the question, right? How did we get from loving each other so much to just really not liking each other? You'll hear me talk about different things over the course of these videos. And if you're a part of my class, you'll hear this again. We have structures inside of ourselves. We have templates, we have stories, we have beliefs, all these things that we've picked up over the course of our life experiences that actually dictate a lot of our behavior. More of our behavior is unconscious than conscious. That's just the way it goes. And there's a Kundalini yoga teaching about that, which is that anything that we don't address, any thought that comes through our minds from the impulse of the universe into our mind, if we don't take that, if we're not conscious and awake enough to take that thought, the energy of that thought, and convert it into something that serves us right at that moment where it penetrates our mind, then it goes into the subconscious. And if we don't address it there, it goes to the unconscious. And the unconscious part of our system is what holds everything that we don't want to deal with, because we've just ignored it. We've rejected it. We've ignored it. We don't want to look at it. Whatever, it all gets dumped into this unconscious, from the conscious to the subconscious to the unconscious. Well, the longer we live and the more crap we have dumped in our subconscious that gets then dumped into our unconscious, the more we have to get past in order to stay open, to stay unattached, to be flexible and fluid with what's going on in our lives, and to be willing to grow and change. That becomes a huge struggle when we're buried underneath all this crap that we don't even know is there. So think of it this way. When you're born, you like a clear vessel. Just imagine yourself as the most beautiful crystal vessel you can imagine. And that there's water inside of you. There's this water inside of you. And it is crystal clear as well. And as you move forward in your life, debris starts getting placed into that crystal vase. From stories you hear, from wounding you get, from beliefs you take on, from strategies you develop just to keep yourself safe, because that's just what humans do. We have egos, and that's what our ego drives us to do when we're unconscious. When we're conscious, it's a different story, which is why I do yoga every day, which is why I highly recommend that. So aside from that, we have all this crap to deal with. And that's the work. That's the work that anybody is looking at when they go see a guidance person, anybody for guidance, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a therapist, a counselor, people like me who do mentoring and spiritual and personal guidance. That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for all those unconscious all that debris inside your crystal vessel that keeps you from being certain, from feeling your inherent value, from this connection to something bigger than yourself. Because those are the things that get covered over by the debris that we take on in our lives. So we can start pouring crystal clear water back into our vessels by getting support and guidance and help, and it'll start flushing out all of that debris from our vessel. And guess what? That's a messy process. Some of you may be in the middle of that process right now, where you're getting support from a counselor or a therapist or somebody to deal with the emotional pain following the ending of this relationship that you had relied on for so long. It's a messy process. So don't expect it to be a pretty process. It's a messy process. But as you pour more clear water and more clear water, what happens is all that debris settled into that vessel will start stirring up and showing you where the wounds are, where the places are that need to be cleaned up. That'll start stirring up, and eventually flushing out. The vessel will overflow with water, and all that debris will start washing out. And that's why we talk about this as a spiritual journey of life, and that it's a process, because it's this process of washing all that crap out of this vessel that we didn't have when we came into this world as a newborn, but we pick up in our life experience here just by the inherent nature of this reality. So, to be certain that you will be okay following a relationship means, number one, you're not attached to the relationship. And number two, that you have maintained your identity. And number three, that you have maintained your sense of value. If you've lost those three things somewhere along your life journey, it doesn't matter how great the relationship was, how clean the breakup is. If those three pieces aren't solid inside of yourself, you're still going to struggle. And the length of that struggle is your personal journey. The content of that struggle is your personal journey. So there is this key to, well, let me say it this way. The difference between where I am now and where I was 12, 15 years ago, as I mentioned before, is that I know without a doubt that if this relationship that I am in today comes to an end, that I will be fine. 15 years ago, that was not the case. 15 years ago, I fell apart because I didn't have that certainty. I'd lost my identity and my sense of value in that relationship. I didn't have a very strong connection to something bigger than myself. I had some, but not big enough to hold what I was going through because the rest of me felt so shattered, right? So the journey back to getting to where I am now is to dig deep into your vessel, to look at all that stuff, to pour crystal water in it little by little, crystal clear water in your vessel, start flushing out all the crap, all the shit that you've taken on that's sitting in your unconscious mind and your subconscious mind, keeping you from being you. You gotta look at it, folks. If you don't look at it, it's not going to change. Doesn't matter if you meet the absolute perfect super partner in the world for you. Eventually, in a matter of time, your crap's going to start coming up because it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays there. And because it's largely unconscious, it ends up factoring into your feelings, your thoughts, and your choices. And then you got a lot of messiness going on that you don't even know where it's coming from because it's coming from somewhere that's out of your awareness. So again, that keeping a high awareness on what's going on with you is so important. Yoga, meditation, I don't care what lineage you do, I just encourage you to do it because that's helpful in starting to clean up those thought mechanisms and bring them to a place where they're supporting you, which is what you want. So, feeling uncertain about where you're going is because there's a lot of messiness inside your vessel. Because think of it this way, if you felt 100% certain about who you were, you had not lost your identity, you felt 100% certain that you had value in this world and something to contribute, and you had a connection to something bigger than yourself so that you could perceive this entire experience as moving you towards your highest good, which is what that connection to something higher helps us understand. If you have those things, then walking away from a relationship, honestly, it's sad in a sense that change almost always brings sadness or tension because it's change and we're moving from something we know to something we don't know. But it's not heart-wrenching. It's not devastating. It's not take you to your knees and you fall apart energy. It's just a huge change in your life, a transition. And when we can come to see those transitions as things that serve us rather than things that hurt us, then life is a lot more fun. I'm completely aligned with that and a complete example of that. So there you have it. That's what came through today in my meditation. If you have questions about this or anything else that we talk about in the group or that you see on my pages, my videos, you could private message me and let's talk, because this is the kind of thing I deal with not only in my own personal life, but with clients all the time. So, and I have put some pieces in place to serve just this issue for people who are ready to change, to break out of those patterns that aren't serving them, to come back to a place where they love and value themselves, and to have that certainty in life that they will be okay no matter what, because that is a big deal. And that's what I wish for you. So again, private message me if you have any questions, and thanks for joining me today. I'll see you in the group. Have a beautiful day.